I like doing exercising because I'm strong and I am a champion. Inside, I feel great. Exercise gives me energy.
I like to play with my friends.
It's important for me that Sophia is part of the PE class because she is a class member just like everybody else in the class. It's important that Sophia is incorporated and has lots of exposure to PE because I wanted her to feel just as included in the PE lesson as her sister Freya.
My gym visit was actually brilliant, and the coaches and the structures in the gym was really good. They were supporting me what I'd done for the past few days, so thank you very much. Do the plank, the row machine, the treadmill, bit of stretches.
It doesn't have to be the most advanced or the most difficult lesson that you can do. It can be the simple lessons with just a little bit of tweaking, and it's just the simple things sometimes that can make a huge difference.
It helps you keep fit and you have a good body, and I feel amazing.
You are very welcome back. We're heading to session 3 now, but before I do, I want to say a big thank you to our 2 interpreters. We have Katrina and Alison with us, who are doing all the signing for us today. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much for all of your work. So let's move on to this session, and for this we have Jack Kavanagh, we have Pauline Casey, and we have Sarah Hewitt. And maybe we'll move on to Pauline, who works with the Waterford Sports Partnership. Pauline, tell me you can hear me down in the southeast, where you're having pretty good days these days, are the people in Waterford?
Yeah, hi Joanne, how are you?
Very good. Is everything still high as a kite down in Waterford at the moment?
Absolutely, there's a great atmosphere down here, lots of blue and white flags around, so we're all looking to the All-Ireland in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, everybody's looking forward to that. What a weekend it was for you guys last weekend. Okay, let's talk about your role and what things have been like for you this past year, because you're right on the front line, aren't you? You're down there at the local sports and trying to help everybody through it. So what has it been like?
Yeah, I suppose it was a bit of a shock to the system when COVID originally arrived on our doorsteps, and we all kind of thought this was a short-lived thing and we'll be back in work in 2 weeks or 3 weeks' time. And, you know, as time kind of went on, we had to change our approach very quickly in terms of what we were doing, how we could engage with the services, how we could engage with clubs, and, you know, access to people at home as well, and give them opportunities to be active. So it did create lots of challenges for us, but I think we overcame a lot of them. And, you know, we talk about resilience and adapting to include people, and I think the whole SIDO network in general done that very, very well in offering lots of different physical opportunities to people at home.
In what way did you do that?
I suppose one of the first things that came about was maybe the In This Together booklet that was done as a partnership collaboration between a number of silos across the country, and it was done in partnership with Tara and with Sport Ireland. And the one thing that really was identified for me being involved in it was the number of resources that were already out there, and the number of resources that we could use to support people to be active, whether it be at home on their own or within their service with their staff, or maybe within the school setting. So that was the one thing that really came out of that. I think even the relationships that were already built and developed were really strengthened during COVID, and we all really leaned on each other for advice or support, or just even ask those questions about what was going well in your area and how did you do it. And, you know, sharing that work with each other was really, really important.
Well, what resources? You talk about the resources you already had in your area. So what in particular came in handy that perhaps people hadn't thought about before?
Yeah, I suppose the whole area of maybe having the exercise cards. So, for example, Cara had a number of resources that we were able to send directly into the services, and they were broken down in a really easy to follow way. So, you're talking about your circuit cards, your boxercise, and your dance. That was one resource. Cork had a really good resource that maybe the In This Together booklet was kind of based upon, and the idea behind it and the concept was excellent. So having something like that was there that we could change and adapt suitable for people with a disability was excellent as well. And I think for a number of the silos across the country, we weren't kind of afraid to step into the whole online area and to develop some online videos and resources that people could use at home, maybe put on their telly or use via YouTube and that as well. And I think they were really important and really beneficial to people also.
And did you find many people really reaching out to you during that time? Did you find people who were struggling were coming to you and asking you for help?
Yeah, they definitely were. I think they were a little bit shocked at the setup that they were in as well. All very isolated, and the social aspect is something that they really did miss. And just here within the Waterford Sports Partnership, we made a really conscious effort to make sure that we were making contact with them on a regular basis through the services and to ask them how we can support them and what do they need. So for an example, one of the services was divided into numerous pods, and they were really isolated. They weren't allowed really access to community. So we actually put small activity packs together for them, and the staff then was delivering that activity with them on a weekly basis. And only recently, we had feedback from the staff to say that they're actually still using the activity packs, and they're probably now even more active than what they might have been pre-COVID, which is great to hear.
That's amazing. And when people talk about the social aspect, because we all know that hit us all so very, very hard, did you in many ways feel like you were needed almost more than ever during this past year?
Yeah, absolutely. COVID and people at home have been very isolated, and particularly for those that really did have to cocoon was difficult on them. And I suppose consciously we're always thinking about, how can we engage? How can we let them know that we're here to support? And there were so many individual, I suppose, askings or, needs that people had. And I think it was our job to try and fulfill them as best as possible. So I do think that we done that, and we kind of overcame all the little barriers and the challenges that we might have faced along the way around, is it Zoom? Is it Microsoft Teams? What's the best software for this organization? It might be different for somebody else, and it might be different for someone else again. So it was up to us to make those changes ourselves to facilitate what their needs really were.
Yeah, it really is all about adapting, which of course is the theme of today as well. So we have Jack Kavanagh back with us, hopefully. A few internet issues for Jack. Now, so Jack, you are a resilience coach. And the thing that I was asking you when you couldn't hear me before, what exactly is a resilience coach and how did you get into that?
Yeah, so hopefully you can hear me at this stage. It's fantastic to be with you. And really, the way that I got into this line of work was my background is as a health professional. I'm a pharmacist. And then, as happens in life, I was dealt a wild card when I had a spinal cord injury at the age of 20. And as a result, I have about 15% muscle function. And it was on the journey, I suppose, that I went on through that process that I noted and started to pick up a whole load of things that facilitated me in going from a place where really I was just about surviving to where I was flourishing and really engaged with life and all its different components again. And so now when I go out to work with organizations and schools and individuals, the work of a coach is really to help individuals understand how can they lean on their own resources and make changes in their life to help them tap into more of what they have within themselves, because I think we've seen over the past couple of months just how adaptable we can be when we face challenge and just how much of an inner resource that each one of us have. And everything that I do is centered around well-being on a holistic scale. So it involves looking at our mental, our emotional, our physical health, and that's why I'm so delighted to be a part of this panel on the lifelong approach, because if we want people to be well, not just people with perceived disabilities, we need to really take that integrated approach that so many people have already spoken about.
Just tell us a little bit more about that. You said how important it is for it to be a lifelong approach. Is this something that an issue you have encountered down through the years and during your time as a resilience coach? That is it that people are looking short term or something like that, or what is the issue?
Yeah, well, I think in anything we've got in life these days, we've gotten used to quick fix. Everything seems so immediate when we open our phones, when we open the laptop. We get used to these quick fixes, and that's really not the nature of life. It's unfortunately not how things happen. And so, when we help people to instill these small little changes in their days, in their weeks, in their months, when we help them to integrate more into their communities and to for example, encourage them to do the 10 to 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour of exercise in a day, and to take up things like the meditation and any other things to connect with people so they're more emotionally resilient and expressed and so on. All of these things are lifelong pursuits, and it's the small little investments that we make day to day that add up over time. And you can almost think about it as a bank account, and the more we invest in these things in small ways regularly, it compounds. And then when we do face challenge or setback or adversity, we have that little bit more of a reserve to lean on, and at least we know the practices that will support us through those times.
And when you are speaking with people, what are the most common questions and most common issues that people have when they're trying to do? Because the way you put it is that you were just living before, or just getting through life is the way you put it. So what questions do people have to you most commonly, so that they're not just doing that, they're getting out and really, really living their lives?
Yeah, I think it begins with self-awareness. It's so easy to flow through life and to be on automatic pilot. And so a lot of the things that come up are developing that self-awareness, becoming aware of our strengths. And I think it's so important. When I work with groups that talk about disability, I like to challenge that, because I'm really lucky to sit on the board of the National Disability Authority. And one of the things that I constantly challenge on that is the idea of disability. Because I really believe the only thing that enables or disables any person is the environment in which they exist. And if we listen to some of the other speakers, if we listen to what is being done in the sports partnerships and in Sports Ireland and all these different things, we're changing the environments. If we look around society at the moment, the environment legally, socially, culturally, physically, all of these things are being tweaked in small ways. And in doing so, we level the playing field for people that otherwise might have been excluded or disadvantaged. And we're seeing people for the strengths that they have, for the inherent abilities that they have, and we're allowing them to express that more. And so really what I focus on is I take a strengths-based approach when we're working with young people or organizations or whatever it might be. And in doing so, we see people more for what they can contribute, for the things that when they apply them and so on, that they really flourish in their work environments, in their sports clubs, in their home life, in their relationships. And that's really the approach that we take. When we talk about building that self-awareness of the things that do light you up and really make you come alive, the hopes and dreams that we all have. For me, for example, so many of them seemed far removed when I had the spinal cord injury. I went from a position of being an avid runner and rugby player and incredibly passionate about water sports and windsurfing to barely being able to scratch my nose. And my journey has been really to tap back into the strength that I got from the outdoors and nature, and to understand how can I integrate it in my life in a more adaptive way now. And that's been a fantastic journey for me. And I don't think those things need to be removed when we, for example, in my situation, acquire what might be perceived as a disability. Because with the right people around us and with access to some helpful equipment, we can get back into these environments and really come back alive again. And all of this is when we show people these things are possible. It paves the way for them to maybe hope and dream and take action on those things in the right environments as well.
Well, at first when you were talking there, I was going to ask then, is much of our problem come down to language? But it sounds like it's not that. It's something a lot more than language, although it does sound like language is the language you use as an issue.
Yeah, so I think language is really important. Disability to me means that something is lacking. Diversability, I think, and that's in my experience, just hasn't been true. I think on any day, if we look at the general population, everybody has a diverse ability. You know, on a given day, 10 out of 10 as to what you can do in terms of how you show up in life and perform at work and so on. You might have a gauge as to what 10 out of 10 looks like, but if you don't sleep well, if you have an argument with your spouse, if you get the flat tire and so on, all of these things will impact how we show up on a day. And so on a given day, how we show up, our ability will be diverse. I grew up severely dyslexic, and until I started to learn how to learn and so on, my ability was maybe compromised compared to the environment that was programmed and set up for people that weren't in that scenario. And so the language that we use around these things is really important, because if we use language that teaches people that they're lacking something, that goes into their psyche and the way that they'll behave and perform. Whereas when we show people what they can do, what they're capable of, the possibilities that are there for them in life, when we have incredible role models like we're seeing in these videos, and like we see in, for example, the sporting world and the business world, and in all areas of life emerging now, with people that previously would have been perceived as having disabilities, and now we're seeing them for the incredible strength they have, and the incredible people they are. That visibility changes everything, and the language changes with that.
Well, Sarah Hewitt of St Michael's House is with us as well, and I'm sure she was listening to what Jack was just saying there. Sarah, is that the sort of thing that you have to deal with on a daily basis as well? Just what Jack was talking about there, about the way people look at things and the way they speak about things, and that can perhaps hold us back sometimes.
Yeah, I think we'll all understand why Jack is in resilience coaching from listening
That's for
to him.
sure.
It's all really, really positive. Yeah, I think with St Michael's House, working with the team, we've always had that attitude of looking at someone's ability and then us working around how to allow them to develop, to expand, to grow, and to participate. So one of my role, I suppose, is promoting participation and opportunities for people to be active and to lead healthy, active lifestyles. And part of what Jack was talking about, you know, that lifelong participation is very much in line with us promoting healthy, active aging. So looking at how we can facilitate environments and the supports, I suppose, to allow people to be involved, to participate, to choose what they like to do, to continue to be active and to learn more and to take ownership over their own health, I suppose. That would be a big piece of what we do. And I think with the pandemic, it's really allowed us to take a step back and look at opportunities to facilitate that knowledge sharing and learning, and look at how we can do that a little bit differently, and looking at new ways. It's been a tough time for people that access our service. For everyone, I suppose, we're looking at providing a service to nearly 2,000 adults and children, and their routines in day services and schools and through different elements of the service, they're what generally would provide the access to programs like physical activity and sport, education, you know, a whole range of things that would contribute to a good quality of life. So when those routines were taken away and day services closed and the country closed, you know, that was a huge adjustment for people to make. And we had to look at ways of working, new ways of working, I suppose, and adapt to that very quickly so that we could meet the needs of people with intellectual disabilities that use our service.
Well, in that case, why don't you tell us a little bit about the HSC's Physical Activity and Education programme?
Yeah, so we're lucky enough, I suppose, one of the big pieces in St. Michael's, I suppose, is the huge amount of partnership work that we do, and the collaboration with NGBs, with CARA, with the local sports partnerships, with SIDOs, with local facilities, and everyone benefits from that. So, you know, we're able to access programs, and people in the community are opening up and, you know, to new customers, I suppose. With COVID coming along, we had to act fast to try and fill the gap with those routines I was talking about, and we created a virtual platform with a timetable. So the timetable looked at different activities that people would do every day, and they covered different physical activity videos or live sessions, mindfulness videos that were created by our psychology department, different skills development, and we use that to try and connect with people. And again, Benny had talked a little bit about access to technology earlier. Like, that was one of the biggest barriers for us to get people online. So people weren't equipped with devices. We had people trying to join Zoom on a smartphone, and there might have been 3 people in a house all trying to spread out around the smartphone, but they were online. So it was the process. And it was a slow process, and, you know, getting people even to learn how to use Zoom and be able to connect was a challenge at the start. But we now see people being more equipped with the technology and learning, and their digital literacy improving as we go. So it's opened up a huge amount of opportunities for them to be involved in different programs. So one of our live sessions was the CARA Physical Activity Education Programme, which we were supposed to deliver in a face-to-face setting before March. We actually got week 1 done, and then everything closed. So one of my colleagues, John, worked with Rianne in CARA, and we looked at adapting that course to deliver it online, recruited participants, and we gave it a go. So we were all learning together, I suppose. It was the first time that that group, those participants, ever engaged in an online course. And then we were also delivering a course to try and engage them in improving their physical activity, their health, trying to gain the knowledge and to meet the learning outcomes. So it was really interesting, and it was really successful. I suppose we had 6 participants joining us for, I think, an hour and a half twice a week for 6 weeks. They consistently turned up. You could see that they were retaining the information and could tell us about you know, the different elements that we were covering around their own health, how much activity we're supposed to be doing every day, exertion levels. You know, it was amazing to see them develop. And some of the photos, I suppose, that you saw there, that was one of our ways of them coming in and sharing their stories, and it was that peer-to-peer learning. So we made sure that they sent their photos of how they were being physically active every week, and we would do a presentation at the start of the class so people could share what they'd been up to and to show the different range of activities that they were doing, and it gave them a platform to come in and be involved, because it's a very different environment for them to be learning. So it was just looking at different ways of engaging them without being in the same room, because that would be, you know, quite a different environment for them. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've done exactly what we're talking about there today, that you adapted to the circumstances around you. And in many ways, did a lot of the service users end up learning something and adapting in ways and getting educated in ways that you never would have thought would have happened if COVID had never hit?
Yeah, it's been a huge learning curve for all of us, and I think, like I'm thinking about all the conversation today from the local sports partnerships. all of those resources and videos have shown up in our activity timetable at some stage. So we have posted links to, say, the dance classes in Roscommon, the adapted dance classes, the resources from Sport Ireland, and Cork Sports Partnership. You know, we've had the SIDOs from Dublin City Sport and Wellbeing coming in and doing videos, and it's working together to try and create that reciprocal learning and nearly building a community of practice around that. But you can see the skills and the enjoyment. So we have the twofold learning piece where people have improved their digital literacy, and it's opened doors for them to be involved in lots of different parts of life, and including the whole area around e-health and telehealth, and being able to access those kind of health supports, but also being able to engage in weekly activities and fitness classes and our virtual walking group, which sounds like it's not possible, but like even that goal setting every week to try and keep people on track. And we'll be using that then going forward in January to push out a health initiative for Operation Transformation, and looking at a series of educational modules, and hopefully Cara's course, Brenda was saying the couple of modules are being designed at the moment, so we'll hopefully be able to access those and spread that out a little bit more to give people the ownership over their health and the autonomy to make those decisions themselves. And we've really relied a lot on the support from staff, and staff have been really, really brilliant, and families have been brilliant in getting people online and being able to access that type of service. It's not a replacement for the face-to-face. We are a human service after all, but lots of those online activities also stemmed off into the community based programs. And you know, the HSE group, when we were able to and restrictions eased off, we're out in the park doing the same program and being able to do that spread out in the park. And some of those have continued on and taken up cycling. You know, so it's looking at initiatives that are out there and trying to adapt them for our service and to push the information out. So it's been a really interesting way of connecting with people and communicating with people. And I'm actually thinking I'll nab Jack maybe to come in and do a session for it.
Yeah, he's very impressive. There's no doubt about that. We're getting coaches in. We're getting questions in for all three of you, actually, for Sarah, for Jack, and also for Pauline as well. So I'm going to put some to, and seeing we've just been hearing from Sarah, I may as well start with you, Sarah, here. This question says, what can we do to encourage local leisure centres to be more inclusive for adults with mild intellectual disabilities?
I think I've had a mixed experience of, you know, good environments and not so good environments. And I think people need to open that communication. And I think that's always the first step. And approach the leisure centre, have a conversation with them. Generally, people are really, really good at adapting how they work. They just might know what's needed. So sometimes I think that's intimidating for people. There might be a little bit of fear around whether they're able to adapt or make the environment more welcoming. But I think it's very important for the leisure centres to just think about the individual and look at what can make it person-centred. So again, this environment that we're in today is going to make that more of a, I don't want to say an issue, but it's going to be something that's going to be a different way of working for us, because we're going to have to support on a much more individual basis, because we don't have the option to mix with big groups. So I think it's a huge opportunity for leisure centres to try and have those conversations with maybe the people that support, the people themselves with mild intellectual disabilities, and have those conversations about what they want and how they want to use their facility, and then look at ways of supporting it. Usually it's not a difficult task, and there's just so much support through Cara and the training courses and resources that if you go and look at the checklists or, you know, do one of their courses, it usually opens the the lines, I suppose, and the pathways for people to participate in their community.
Okay, unfortunately we've run out of time for your questions, but do keep coming them in because we've more, another session still to go with Niall a little bit later. So for now, a big thank you to Sarah Hewitt, to Pauline Casey and to Jack Kavanagh.